please stand. This evening, we have the privilege of having the Tiger Cubs Den 1 from Pack 1070 lead us in the pledge. So Stephen, Alejandro, Nicholas, and we also have Mackenzie from Girl Scout Troop 71544. If you will please come in. Okay. Can we have you lead us in the pledge now? Yeah. All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Blash.
Here.
Campbell.
Here.
Dempsey.
Here.
Hill. Here. Raker.
Here.
Okay, announcements, acknowledgements, communications reports, which is going to include our quarterly department head reports. So I don't know how you want to start that. I'm sorry, Gary?
Do we need to excuse
Oh, yes,
the other two
excuse.
commissioners?
Well, I know that I've not
may be
heard
out.
about Menser, but Roger Button is, may show up later, but if you'd
Okay.
like to excuse him.
I'll move to excuse both Commissioners Button and Menser.
Support.
Roll call?
Campbell.
Yes.
Dempsey.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Raker.
Yes.
Blash.
Yes.
Okay. No matter how you want to do this with the announcements.
We'll have the quarterly department head reports that we can begin with, and we'll start with Brian Tingley from Community Development.
All right, thank you. In terms of development activity, in March, the Planning Commission granted site plan approval for a new parking structure and welcome center at the County Administration Building. The project is currently going through engineering review. Just this month, in April, the Planning Commission granted site plan approval to a 47,000 square foot building addition for Powder Coat 2. And this addition will connect the two existing buildings at 50 and 60 North Rose. Again, their next step is engineering review. Taco Bell has begun construction of its new restaurant on Grospec. The new SVS Vision site on Cass, also nearing completion of their engineering review for their new parking area. That's going to be along Byron Court in Cass. And they're continuing with their other site improvements as well. I did mention before, but staff is nearing completing its review of the city's rental registration and inspection ordinance, which has been largely unchanged since its adoption in the early 1990s. So we hope to add a few things, strengthen a few things to hopefully make our rental inspection process a little tighter. In terms of inspection stats, on the first quarter we issued 276 building, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and zoning permits. There were 365 separate code enforcement actions, 412 rental inspection actions. We issued 49 rental certificates of compliance and 19 new certificates of occupancy. We're currently working with the county and DDA on developing a real estate tour of Mount Clemens properties this summer, so I hope to know more about that in the next month or so. And lastly, in partnership with the city and its Historic District Commission, the Michigan Transit Museum has raised just under $10,000 in private funds to help offset the city match of $16,000 for the Train Depot roof replacement grant project. This is the result of a $24,000 grant that the city received from the State Historic Preservation Office in 2014. And the project will be occurring later this summer. For more information about making a donation to the project, you can contact the Michigan Trans Museum at 586-463-1863. That's all that I have tonight.
Thank you.
Let's go with our Finance Director, Marilyn DeLugie.
You want to take a question at the end?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you had a question. I missed it.
Can you, I know there was some discussion about sidewalk programming. Can you make any comments for the general public as far as where we're at on that?
A sidewalk program?
Yes,
I think the
replace it.
city manager is going to touch on that. I believe this.
Yeah, in terms of where we're at on that process, we're going to basically look at the question of the sidewalk program from a budget standpoint, try to determine if there's going to be response support for having a budget level. Then the idea we were going to proceed with was a couple of different programs to bring forward, a couple of different ways to approach it, because of the impact of the budget hearing processes and various other things going on. That's kind of been impossible to do lately. So we're looking to have that brought up probably at the next commission meeting, potentially in a work session beforehand, or in conjunction with the regular meeting, if need be.
Thank you.
So that's the game plan going forward on the sidewalk program.
Thanks, Brian.
For the accounting and finance department, which also covers the purchasing, the treasurer's department downstairs, and assessing. So the assessing department this past quarter had sent out the property tax notices in February and had their board of review March 16th and 17th, and there was 87 property owners that had signed up for the board of review this year. The accounting department was working on the closing of the 2014 property taxes with the county. The property taxes were due February 28th, but this was a Saturday, so taxes were also collected on March 2nd. The accounting department also worked with the HR department in completing the W-2s, 1099s, and the reports for the to go with that. In January, of course, as you know, we've started our budget process. The accounting and finance department prepares or estimates also all the revenues for the various departments. And then over February and March, the individual departments complete their own section, and then it is all turned over to the city manager for review. And from there, we processed and built the books in time for the first meeting in April, according to the charter, to present to the commission. The city, we've also been working with the PM group, and this group is helping us with our health insurance issues that we've been experiencing with the new Affordable Health Care Act and the changes that started July 1st of 2014. Part of the issues was that the Blue Cross Blue Shield no longer offers master medical, and a lot of our accounts or divisions were built on that, and they went from master medical to 80/20. So we have been in the process of correcting that, and it's been a very slow process, and Blue Cross is still in the process of trying to make those corrections. The water shutoffs were not done through January and February, first because of the cold weather and frozen service lines and water leaks. The shutoffs were completed for this quarter by April 8th. The purchasing department, Teresa wrote approximately, posted 17 bids on the Mitten cable and website, processed 6 insurance claims, and processed also 275 purchase orders for the various departments. Also made 40 phone calls for service orders for repairs to electrical, plumbing, various issues we've had across the city. So that's it.
Any questions of Marilyn? Commissioner Raker?
In regards to those that have challenged their tax assessment at the state level, the tax tribunal, isn't there a, don't we end up usually having to factor in some kind of payback for those that were challenged and adjusted? And if there has been, can you comment as to how much and how many people that has been?
Well, through the tax tribunals, basically, Nancy has completed most of them. I think we might have a few small claim ones left, but the ones that do, we'll get a notice from the tax tribunal on what our part is to pay back, but yes, it's built into our budgets. And no, I don't know the numbers.
Okay.
When we had several over the past few years, we used to keep track all the time, but because now we're down to just a few, we don't keep that tracking system.
Okay.
Just for clarification, when you referred to working with PM, you meant Plant Moran, right?
Well, Plant Moran, but they call themselves PM Group, this division.
Oh, they do? Oh, okay, just for
Yep, part of it, yeah.
clarification. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Marilyn.
Go with Patrick Linneberry next with our cable function.
This past Tuesday, April 14th, WOW transitioned its entire platform from analog to a digital-only platform. Residents of WOW that were made aware of this through letters home and also made aware of this on their billing statements. Essentially, what's going on now is that anyone that has a standard analog television, a standard def analog television, is required now to have WOW equipment to now decode digital channels. If you have a digital television already, you can receive the digital platform. By December, they'll require all WOW customers to have some type of WOW equipment in your home to receive their programming. Comcast made the switch, I want to say 2006, 2005. They immediately made all their customers have Comcast equipment, so WOW is trying to catch up there. And that's really all I have for that. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Department of Public Services, Jeff Wood, Director.
In the Department of Public Services, we responded to 42 animal control complaints, have issued 2,196 parking citations. In park mobile transactions, we had 4,132. That's the pay by cell phone system. That generated $7,272 in revenue and $85,131 in meter revenue. In the sanitation department, over the last quarter, we've hauled 981 tons of refuse to the landfill. In the dial ride, we've transported 18,737 passengers, which 5,287 of them were rides on the senior shopper. Over at Memorial Fields this past weekend, we held, or we didn't hold, but we hosted our first baseball tournament, and the city received many compliments from those folks on the conditions of the fields and how well they were maintained. I'd also like to remind everyone that beware this weekend with the for street closures and runners through the Let's Move Festival of Races, and that the Crocker Boulevard resurfacing is scheduled to begin May 18th. And if anybody is interested in receiving a replacement recycle bin, you can get one at the Department of Public Services or contact the Department of Public Services at 586-469-6847, extension 514.
Thank you. Jeff,
You're welcome.
any questions? Okay, thank you.
Quick clarification on that last point. The way I understand it, you're entitled to having a second recycling bin at no charge. So if you've already made a claim on that, then that would be an issue. But if you haven't and you're still on your first recycling bin, you get that second one replacement as a free service from the city. But beyond that, it becomes a charge. And then we have Lisa Borgas, our city clerk, next.
The city clerk's office is in the process of preparing to conduct the special election that would be held on May 5th. To date, 783 absentee ballots have been mailed. If you are interested in voting by absentee ballot, please contact the city clerk's office at 469-6818, extension 3. The city clerk's office will be open on Saturday, May 2nd, from 8:30 a.m. until 2 p.m. for the purpose of receiving and issuing absentee ballots for that election. Please bring proper identification to obtain a ballot. Polls will be open on Election Day from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. If you have any questions about polling locations or where to vote, please contact the city clerk's office. The deadline for filing nominating petitions for the November 3rd, 2015 election is Tuesday, July 21st at 4 o'clock. We are also preparing to mail business registration renewal notices to all businesses throughout the city. Notices will be mailed the second week of May to over 600 businesses. All business registrations expire June 30th and must be renewed prior to July 1st. Anyone who would like to volunteer to serve on a board, committee, or commission can contact the city clerk's office for an application. Currently, there are vacancies on the following boards: Beautification Advisory Committee, Board of Zoning Appeals Alternate, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, Cable TV Commission, Harbor Commission, Historical Commission, Historic District Commission, and the Traffic Safety Committee.
Thank you.
Any questions?
From the public safety aspect of things, for the sheriff's department and for the fire department, I'm going to make a report on those next time around at our May meeting because of a couple of issues related to the dreaded upgrade of systems that is making information currently unavailable at the county level. So we will cover both of the fire department and the police police function next time around. And that's all we have for the reports for this evening, for the quarterly reports.
Do you have any other announcements?
Just 2 meetings to announce. The Harbor Commission will be meeting on Tuesday, April 28th at 9 a.m. And the Historic District Committee will meet on Tuesday, April 28th at 7 p.m. Both meetings are here at City Hall.
Any questions or comments?
To
Commissioner
the,
Baker?
to the city manager, you said next time around?
Yeah, at the
or
next
next
commission meeting. Correct.
Okay, all right,
Yeah,
next meeting.
sorry.
All right.
It could have been a little clearer there, yes, at our first meeting in May.
Are there any other announcements? Okay, adoption of the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Support.
Roll call.
Dempsey,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Raker,
Yes.
Blash,
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Okay, public participation, this is the time you may address this body. All we ask is that you give us your name and residential address, and that you adhere to our 3-minute rule.
Laura Fournier, 70 Ludwig Street. Well, I'm certainly glad, at least at this committee meeting, there was a mention of the sidewalk issue and that it's still on someone's mind. I'm still very disappointed that there's been no action taken. This issue has not been addressed now in over 10 years. These sidewalks are in deplorable shape. They are a safety hazard. It actually borders to me on, it's inconceivable how this could continue to be discussed and nothing be done. If it's not time, it's money, it's the time of year, whatever the excuses at the moment, everything that I've been ever told has never come to fruition. If we can find about $50,000 to work on a master plan, a plan that we didn't do a heck of a lot under from the one we did 5 years ago, we can find something to get this sidewalk program off the ground. I volunteered my time, I have volunteered my husband's time, and I have a whole list of people that would be more than happy to assist the city in getting this problem taken care of.
Thank you.
Scott Fry, 67 Eldridge. I wanted to talk about this at the last meeting, but I got stuck in Cleveland. Having an issue with the March Board of Review. I want to know, and I want to answer at the next meeting, what their qualifications are to be on that board, because obviously they do not know what they're doing. I want to know how I can pay $4,300 for a house in 2011, and they feel it's worth $65,000. I am one of the people that are going to the tribunal in Lansing to fight it. So I'm one of the few people that are actually doing that. And then next, about this landlord rental issue going on. Many of them are parking on, there was issues with me with parking, but there was an issue with somebody on a Facebook page who is a landlord who has a house located on the corner of Clinton and North Avenue, who feels it's okay to blast your music where the windows are shaking. That's perfectly fine, which you had happen near your neighborhood. And he basically said, when I even mentioned this, his reply was, "You're just getting old." I'm 43, I'm not that old, but I'm not young. Anyways, it's rude. I don't do that stuff. I'm a huge Madonna fan, but you don't hear me blasting her music constantly for everyone to hear. I don't do that stuff. And parking on their front lawns is not allowed. All these rental properties keep doing it. And as far as people telling you, we'll call the sheriff's department, when we do that, they don't do anything. They don't even give a warning. They drive by and they don't ticket. It's gross, it's tacky, it's ghetto. Stop it. That's all. Bye.
Thank you.
Joe E. Harrington, 152 Court Street in the city of Mount Clemens. I'm here about the rubble that is still sitting on Walnut Street between Clemens and Jones Street. The city manager said 6 months ago that it would be taken away in a month, 30 days. It's still sitting there. Also, there's a house on the corner of Jones and Court Street that has been vacant for over 25 years. The house is about 80 years old. It is beyond disrepair. It costs more to cut the grass than the house is worth. If you gave me the house for free, I wouldn't take it until after you tore the house down, because it costs of the tearing it down. And I have complained about it. Now there are squatters, there's drugs, there's prostitutes. The police has been there. If, God forbid, someone is found dead or raped in this house, then it's too late. And so I'm begging you to give these two, and the thing about it, both of these properties are city-owned. So if the city has a blight and ordinance code inspector to go out and give warnings and violations, then how can they justify the city owning these kind of properties? So please do something about it. And on another note, nothing personal against none of you. It seems like people come before this body and kind of attack you and kind of disrespectful to you. But I'm getting to understand it's out of frustration of complaints. And maybe we're voicing our complaints to the wrong people. Maybe you don't have the authority and the power and the responsibilities that we think that you do. And maybe you can't solve some of these problems. But if I just knew that, then I wouldn't bring such an account to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Gloria Haller, 260 Cass. Since this is a budget time of year, I'm going to bring up again. You got a county payroll of 33 million. Just do the arithmetic, 1/2 of 1% of that. Boy, wouldn't we be in high clover. But every time I bring up a city income tax, I hear excuses. Let me tell you the two main excuses. Oh, the setup time be a couple years. No. I have a notebook where I have called all 23 cities in Michigan that have an income tax. I've gone down a script and asked them all the same questions, the same type of questions, and everything else. Unless you're talking the city of Detroit, which is huge. Typically, it's a 4 to 9 month setup. Number two, oh, we don't have personnel, we don't have money to, city or the state will collect it for you. All you gotta do is put it in. The point being, the burden for running this city needs to be more evenly distributed among people that are all enjoying the running of the city. You're putting it on roofs of, unfortunately, a lot of people on fixed and low income, when in fact, you could collect. Now, I realize that all of you up here, pretty much, would be nicked probably worse in the pocket if there were a city income tax than you would be for a property tax increase, because you all have earnings or pensions, and so probably you really don't want to see us, well, tough. Who better to shoulder the burden? People that have pension and some sort of income, or people on a fixed income that are already counting. I can tell you the number of people I know that count, well, one of those big canisters of oatmeal is $4.34, and that's a month of breakfast. And please start putting it where, but don't tell me it's hard. If you explain to people you're going to pay one way or the other, you're going to pay on your roof, or you're going to pay as an income tax, or maybe not if your income's low enough. But you know what? We can get all these other people to pay who right now aren't paying dime one. And you need to give serious consideration to it and get moving on it, because you need a city income tax. It's going to come, it's going to hit you between the eyes, and then you're going to be all hurried up and make mistakes. Just get it going and get off our roofs, because it's just not fair to put the burden on the low income and on the property owners when all these other people, being that we're the county seat, get all the benefits and then go home and enjoy no costs.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Laura Kropp. I'm a resident of Mount Clemens at 15 Bellevue. I'm not sure if you're an active social media member or not, but the city of Mount Clemens doesn't currently have a presence that's officially on Facebook, but there are pages that are, I don't want to say posing as the city of Mount Clemens, but they do appear to look like a city of Mount Clemens. And so there's a lot of discussions on them that I'm not sure that if somebody was looking for a house in our neighborhoods or looking for information about our city, that we would want to be presented as that. And so I thought maybe somebody should take a look. And Facebook in itself as an entity, as a corporation, has a very strict policy on that. And so all it would take was someone to make one phone call or one email to Facebook, and those pages that were misrepresenting themselves as Mount Clemens would be forced to abide by their guidelines and report truly who they are, and it would be clearer. So it's a very simple fix, and so I would hope that someone would take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we'll move along. Administrative responses to issues and questions raised during previous meetings.
Thank you, Your Honor. The first item we have is street flooding. It was stated at a prior meeting about whether there was a possibility of pumping water out of a flooded street during a heavy rain event. In many cases in these kind of situations, it's the city actually placing what's called restrictor plates on the catch basins on streets that are subject to having water in basements and things of that nature. So the idea is that by putting the restrictor plates on the catch basins, you slow the infiltration of water into the system, and you actually store it above ground for a period of time until the system can better handle the flow and avoid flooding basements. So the idea of storing that water by way of these restrictor plates above ground for a period of time is sort of part of the approach to minimizing the damage from flooding that some people experience in their basements in certain neighborhoods. So that's the reason why some of those situations occur. It's by design. The city's purposely done that in an effort to slow down the water flow into our system and to increase the possibility of avoiding basement flooding. The area of Gratiot Court and Boheme is regularly reviewed because of these kind of issues occurring in the area with flooded basements. As previously discussed, we expect to receive grant funding that will allow development of an asset management plan that will help the city address the issues that we experience in this kind of a neighborhood. And that's a situation I've talked about before where the funding was opened up to everybody. Everybody put in their requests, and it was awarded basically on a lottery basis. And we didn't get the first straw. We got one of the later straws, unfortunately. So as that funding comes in, the city will make an effort to use that grant funding to develop an asset management plan that will allow us to do a better job of addressing the issues that occur in areas like Gratiot Court and Boheme. Secondly, 230 North Avenue, there was a question raised at the prior meeting about the facility that's operated by Liberties Incorporated at that location. The city does not license that facility. Instead, they're under the responsibility of the Michigan Department of Community Health as well as county mental health agencies. The location is properly zoned for the use that is in place, and Liberties Incorporated is also current with its business registration, which the city clerk mentioned earlier in her report. If you do have a concern about any activity happening at that location or another location, we suggest you contact the Sheriff's Department at 586-469-5151, and that would relate to loitering or other issues that you think might be taking place at that location or some other situation where you think there's some violations of the law. We'd encourage you to contact the Sheriff's Department. The sidewalk program's number 3. We talked about the sidewalk program at a recent work session of the Mayor and Commission. After discussion, a request was made of city administration to bring us a few specific options forward for discussion. As I mentioned earlier, the slowdown's basically just been availability of time. We've had budget hearings scheduled not only on regularly occurring commission meeting nights, but also on off weeks on Mondays as well. So therefore, the current intent is to determine what the plan is for funding that program, and Ms. Fournier mentioned the dollar amount of $50,000. That's an option. A $100,000 program, a $50,000 program. Mayor and Commission can choose to either set aside funding for that kind of a program or not. I would like to point out that regardless of how a sidewalk program gets done, there's going to be a need for advance funding basically by the city, whether it's through a formal sidewalk program or simple enforcement. The reality is that the city is going to have to front money to get the work done and to wait out a time period of reimbursement in many cases. So that's something that we're looking for some kind of a funding level, and then we can bring things back as per the direction of the Mayor and Commission with a couple of different ideas as to how to approach that, whether it be a formal sidewalk program, whether it be enforcement of the current ordinances with an idea that we have funding set aside to cover a certain amount of activity on a yearly basis, perhaps as a beta test, an initial program. That's the sidewalk program update. Number 4, 263 Euclid. The city has filed a complaint with the 41B District Court to require this property to register as a rental property and to allow the city to conduct a rental inspection. We've just learned a May court date has been scheduled, and we'll keep you apprised as that develops. 249 Cass Avenue is number 5. That was an issue where an initial demolition process took place. The DEQ was involved and had developed a couple of concerns about how that demolition was handled. And because of that, it's been sitting with no progress lately. The DEQ has issued their clearance of this demolition, and a new demolition permit was issued by the city. At the writing of this update, equipment was on site, and I don't know if Brian has an update for any new activity.
They have been on site clearing the property.
Right. So happily, that's on its way to being cleared, which brings us to a related note here, number 6, 217 North Walnut. Gentleman earlier at this meeting was asking about that. This was developed before he asked about it. The cleanup at this site is on hold pending the lifting of the frost law restrictions, which is scheduled to occur today, April 20th. So frost laws are in place to prevent undue damage to the property because of the fact that the ground is starting to thaw and the ground is unstable and things like that. You can get into situations with heavy equipment where that becomes problematic. That was scheduled to be cleared as of today, and we anticipate that we'll have action on 217 North Walnut this week. And that is a good illustration of what the gentleman said about, when people come up here to complain about things to the mayor and commission and whether you might consider them to be the appropriate agency. Well, even if they are the appropriate agency, unfortunately, we're not all powerful about what happens in the city of Mount Clemens. We're subject to restrictions that get put on us by other agencies, by other levels of government and things of that nature, and this is a prime example of that. We had issued the deal to get somebody to clear the property, but we had to wait for the clearance of the frost laws, and that's what's taking place today, and we should have action this week. And that's all I have under administrative responses for this week.
Commissioner Raper.
I think I understand the answer already to this question, but I'll ask it for the viewing public. If you have the frost laws, how they apply to 217 and how they apply to the Cass property that's
right
being rented, if you can explain that a little bit, because I'm quite confident I'll receive a phone call on something like that.
Yeah, I mean, depending on the situation and what kind of equipment's required, there could be different issues, and that's likely what would have been in play in that particular situation. I'll let Brian Tingley.
Yeah, it's really related to seasonal weight restrictions on roads and what vehicles and equipment can be mobilized to get to the site.
On roads, but, okay, so now I'm more curious. Both sites will use the same roads, basically. I mean, they're not going to use the same residential roads, but I mean, getting to and from where they're going to dump the stuff. So why would you be able to remove from one site and not the other?
Yeah, I'm not really certain what specific equipment is being used.
Okay. But
The majority of the demolition that occurred at 249 was in place prior to those, the restrictions.
the good news is, though, we're past 420 and it's going to get done.
Should be clear today. Do you have any update on that, Brian?
I don't.
I don't know for sure that it happened today. It was supposed to happen today. We'll double check and see if we can provide some information to Mayor and Commission tomorrow.
The permit has been issued on 217 North Walnut to the contractor, so the work should be starting anytime.
If it's not today, it'll be tomorrow, and should be happening. That's why I mentioned this week. It should start to happen this week.
I have another question. In regards to number 1, you're answering the question with asset management grant funding. That's not necessarily going to address this specific problem, am I correct? It's going to help provide a asset management program.
Well, the problem is that the limitation we have is we don't have good information about what's in play in our system, frankly. The asset management plan is going to help us develop that information. The ideas are going to televise the system, they're going to map the system, and we'll have a better idea what's facing us in terms of where we have combined sewer flows and where the biggest problems are, what kind of an issue exists in terms of how deep the services are, how easily addressed they are, and given our limited funding that we're going to have available, where's the best spot to address the issues that we do have in a way that's going to allow us to get something substantial accomplished with the funding that we have. So that's what the purpose of an asset management plan is, just to give us a better understanding of our own system, which is pretty limited, unfortunately, in many cases.
Understood. However, in this specific instance, do we understand what exactly is causing that flooding over there?
It's a combined sewer system in that area, so that's
Okay.
part of the issue. But the rest of it, in terms of how deep it is and how easily addressed it's going to be, is what will be part of that asset management plan.
Okay. I had brought up at previous meetings the request or consideration to develop some type of resolution that we could provide to our state and federal legislatures to lobby them for consideration to help us mitigate this issue. And I'd still like us to move forward with at least that request to put some added interest in their perspective on that.
Right. It's largely a local issue. The question is whether we can stimulate some interest in making additional funding sources available, and that would be something that we can try to pursue.
That's what I'm looking for, please.
Correct. That's something we're aware of, and I did see that from the notes. I just didn't have anything really meaningful to add to the discussion today on that front, but we'll keep that at the front of our minds and in our actions as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Blash?
That's all right. I mean, we were talking about that frost issue, and that the site over there on Cass Avenue, they pretty much demoed that whole thing from the parking lot. So they weren't having to drive across any dirt.
Anyone else? No? All right. Approval of the minutes from previous meetings?
I move to approve the minutes from the regular meeting on April 6th and the work session on April 13th as presented.
Support?
Roll call?
Hill,
Yes.
Raker,
Yes.
Blash,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Dempsey.
Yes. General business, 9A, request the city commission approval of a contract for utilities department management. Need a motion?
I'll move to enter into a professional services agreement for day-to-day management and oversight of the utilities department with F&V operations and resource management for 1 year, with an option to extend as approved by the city commission, and to authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement as finalized by the city attorney.
Second.
So the city administration has taken several steps to fill the vacancy in our utilities director position, which was created by the retirement of the prior incumbent. These steps have included a hiring search as well as investigation of various contractual alternatives for providing day-to-day management oversight and direction to our wastewater treatment plant, water treatment plant, and the associated collection and distribution function. City administration conducted a request for qualifications or RFQ process for management services related to the utilities department. As a result of the RFQ, F&V operations and resource management, FVOP as it will be referred to elsewhere, was selected as our preferred respondent, and discussions with FVOP for provision of professional services were held. City administration is recommending that the city finalize a professional services agreement with that FVOP for day-to-day management and oversight of our utilities department. Additional information is attached to this agenda item. And I do have a cover letter provided this time around, as well as the package that was provided at the March 16th meeting. The March 16th meeting was provided, or the package from the March 16th meeting was provided in its entirety, just for the same benefit of the same information that was discussed at that meeting. The new cover memo was available to mayor and commission, and if there's any questions on that, I'm happy to go over it.
Questions? Commissioner Blash?
Well, having reviewed this, and I'm not, and again, it's your recommendation that we need some managerial oversight in those two departments. However, the cost of this, in my opinion, is exorbitant. And I do believe that we can contract for managerial oversight for about half this amount of money. This works out to 40 hours a week. And I can't understand what this company is going to do on site for 40 hours a week that they couldn't accomplish, say, for example, in 20 hours a week. I'm not opposed to having managerial oversight, but I think this is just way too expensive. And I think we can accomplish it for, even as an example, for half the cost, half the number of hours provided at 20 hours a week, and the elimination of the additional compensation that is being paid right now to the tune of probably about almost $150,000 that could be reprogrammed for other uses, like sidewalks.
If I may, Your Honor. The direct response to that statement, the number of hours actually proposed is 180 hours per month, which works out to just slightly north of 40 hours per week for the full year. When you do the multiplication out by 12 months, it's about 2,160 hours. I could approach the company in the meanwhile. That's not something that I've approached them about in terms of whether they feel they could do it with a lesser number of hours. And I'm confident they can do it. It's whether the question would be whether they can, accomplish the different things that we've asked them to accomplish in the proposal process that we've developed and the professional services agreement as well. So that's a discussion I'm happy to have if it pleases the mayor and commission to talk with them about what kind of options they can provide us at lower hourly commitments and lower associated costs, if that's something that the mayor and commission would be interested in pursuing. And certainly that's a question that I could obtain an answer to.
If we're looking at contracting for an entire year, I've got to believe that within that 12 months, if we're looking for an asset assessment, that can certainly be accomplished in a period of a year for less than 40 hours a week. And like I said, the first question popped in my mind is, what are these people going to be doing that isn't being done right now for 40 hours a week? If they're just going to sit in a chair and watch somebody work, that's not oversight.
The intent was simply to include a full-time equivalent oversight function. If that's something that you would like to find out what some kind of alternatives are, that's certainly something we can do.
I'd be interested in an alternative because I think we can accomplish the same thing for about half the price.
So are you?
I'm just asking for the manager to look into a plan B or another option.
Okay, so I guess I'm asking city manager, did you want to pull this and put it on hold, or how do you want to handle this? How long will it take you to provide the additional information?
I have no concerns about how long that will take. If we decide to hold off action on it at tonight's meeting, I can have an answer for us at our next regularly scheduled commission meeting, I have no doubt. So,
Commissioner Raker?
I like your innovative approach there, Commissioner Blash. I didn't think of that. I'm a little disappointed myself. However, I was more concerned with the opportunity of providing it internally. That was something that I think several of us had coalesced around. And I had, for the viewing public, I did have a very good, productive conversation with the city manager this morning around this issue. And I think you've done a fantastic job as far as investigating options. But I like Commissioner Blash's approach, and I would like us to focus more on possibly working with that internal candidate, because I as well, looking at some of the things that they're going to do, I would agree that a lot of the stuff is not going to take that much time. I can't say I've ever operated a water treatment plant, but I have been involved in certain fluid moving activities, so in the Navy. So I'm aware of the scope of work. Also, I believe this was vacant when you came on?
yes, correct. We had just started the RFQ process just before I started.
And I'm not trying to overtask you, but I think some of these things in conjunction with that internal candidate and yourself, you could address as well, and I would encourage you to consider that. But I'm on board with pursuing both options, the one that Commissioner Blash is suggesting, and if you could delve deeper into the option
Yes.
of the internal candidate. I did bring to your attention that we didn't have the cost for developing that internal candidate. You did tell me forthright that you did not envision it would be necessarily cost prohibitive or cost more than this option that you presented before us, which is fair, but I'd like to get a numbers-to-numbers approach, if you would, please.
Yeah, no, I do have some additional information in that regard that I've just started to pull together. It'll take a little bit of time, but again, by the May meeting is not an issue. We'll have some more information on that function as well, or that option as well. Yes.
Commissioner Hill?
Well, I just wanted to say that I thought that the duties that they were going to perform were a lot more than develop or, looking at the assets of the physical plant and all. I thought it was to study the efficiency, to develop and train the current employees so that they were better able to perhaps assume the supervision themselves in the future. And so it's hard to say how much time all of that is going to take.
Well,
Commissioner Blash?
I would agree, I agree with you. And I had the conversation with the manager with regards to the internal candidates, and that would have been my first preference, was to have those candidates that were so desirous take and get that additional license that we're looking for. And that would have been my first option. The other thing, though, is with regards to day-to-day operations, in both of those facilities, we're running 3 shifts: day shift, afternoon, and a night shift. And I don't see any of these management people, nor like the former director that we had, being on site in the afternoon or midnight shift. So I'm not sure what kind of training they would be able to provide unless they're going to be on site 24 hours a day, and I don't see that happening. Now, I don't disagree that, if there's some additional training that needs to be had, or some experience gained for some of those internal candidates, I think that's fine. But I think in a year's time, all of that can be accomplished for half of the price of this.
Well, my understanding is that this management company, rather than having a single person, have several different people, and I would think that they could have people available on different shifts.
You're only looking at 40 hours a week.
And the other advantage is that rather than having a single person supervising the operations, they have people that have expertise in several different areas, and so they can provide more, supervision, training, input than a single individual could.
Well, I will say this, we have a fairly competent staff at both of those plant facilities.
Well, that may be, but my understanding was that there were some problems when the city manager visited there, that he didn't find everything just fine.
Yeah, the bottom line is, if you will, from a personnel perspective, I mean, the difference between a company and an individual is additional resources can come from a company, and that's one of the potential benefits. There's a cost associated with that, and that's what I think Commissioner Blash is expressing as a concern. However good an individual is, they're one individual, and when you get beyond their scope of knowledge and expertise, that's the extent of their scope and expertise, the scope of their expertise and experience. Whereas if you have a company and the existing people that are on site have an issue that they can't address, there's the possibility of bringing in somebody else that has that different expertise or that different set of experiences and abilities into the equation, and I think that's what Commissioner Hill is referring to. So, I mean, there's a difference between the two regardless. It comes down to a cost-benefit analysis. The recommendation was made on the basis of that cost-benefit analysis being the best interest of the city being served with a management company. However, as I said earlier, the question is something that I can address pretty easily, and a 2-week delay is not something that's prohibitive for my purposes, and we can take a look at that and see what the answer is from that perspective and see if there's interest in a different approach. From the company standpoint, I can bring it forward and let you know what the difference in cost might be, and we can go from there.
I'd just like to say that I don't mind delaying for a couple of weeks if you think you can negotiate a better price for us. But I just want to say that I hope that that's going to be the end of it, because we've been diddling around on this for months now, and we need to make a decision and do something.
That's a fair point as well.
So to navigate this, then would a simple substitute motion to bring this back in at the next meeting with the other 2 options?
We just table it.
Can we just table it?
Table it to the next meeting.
Okay, we can either do that.
Table it to the next meeting.
I would like to make the motion then to also have the other 2 options as far as the costs for the internal candidate and just the cost for the internal candidate and the cost that you suggested at a lesser time and rate.
If they'll go for it.
That's right.
If they'll go, right. So, I mean, the option may come back that, hey, that's not the option and this is the cost. But if we can have answers on those two counts, that'd be great.
I thought that from my discussions with the city manager that the looking at the single individual had been pretty well explored and rejected.
From my recommendation standpoint, that's correct.
And you did share that with every commissioner on the board, correct?
Right. And it's referenced in the
Thank you.
cover letter as well. But we can bring back the idea of what the additional cost of training and all that would be. It's
Don't have to go into it now.
yeah, it's going to be a little bit limited, but we'll provide some information in that regard. We do know what the licensing requirements are and what they involve. We just learned that today with some additional inquiries, what the details are. I got a little better perspective on that, so I can come back with a better idea of what might be involved from that internal candidate standpoint as a hypothetical, which is all it is currently.
Okay, so I'm going to have, someone going to make a motion to table this?
I move to delay action on this item for 2 weeks till the next regular meeting.
Support.
Roll call.
Raker.
Yes.
Lash.
Yes.
Bunton. Oh, I'm sorry. Campbell. Campbell.
Wake up.
Yes.
Dempsey.
Yes. He's
Hill.
been so quiet tonight.
Yes.
City manager, is it necessary that I make a motion for the other two?
No, I mean, we've had a pretty full
All right,
discussion on that.
thank you.
So
All right, I'll leave it at that then.
I understand.
9B, approval of purchase and payments of invoices. Need a motion?
Motion to approve purchases and payment of invoices as presented.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Lash.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Dempsey.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Raker.
Yes.
Consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Roll call.
Campbell.
Yes.
Dempsey.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Raker.
Yes.
Lash.
Yes.
City managers report.
Thank you, Your Honor. The first item, master plan update status. The request for proposal process continues. Next steps include the review committee conducting interviews of selected respondents by the end of April. Number 2, DTE. Both DTE and the city have been keeping the lines of communication open regarding mutual customers and their needs. As an example, a recent power outage affected city residents, and DTE and the city worked together to disseminate information about the outage as well as work associated with the issues that caused the outage. Also, previously, we provided information about options for reporting non-functioning streetlight issues, and we recommended that you call 800-477-4747 to report such a situation. You can do the same for a general power outage. In terms of a non-functioning streetlight, you can submit a form on the DTE website at the following address, which is www.dteenergy.com, and then there's lots to go after this, /CSO/PLTR/INIT capital TROUBLE .DO ? And then customer type equals RESID, I'm sorry, residential. I can shorten that one. So customer type equals residential is the ending. And if anybody has any questions about that, I encourage them to call the city manager's office and ask them for that address, and we can work out a way to get you that information a little more easily than repeating it here at the commission meeting. This information, pursuant to the request of Mayor Dempsey, has also been placed on our website at www.cityofmountclemens.com, which is another easier way to find that address. Number 3, street sweeping. With the spring weather, this service has once again started in the city, so look for action in the area from our DPS. Number 4, mass transit evaluation process for Macomb County. City administration has been invited to participate in the Regional Transit Authority's technical committee process. The initial meeting is planned for April 22nd, 2015. As activities begin, more information will be shared. This committee will be looking at the interest in, need for, and potential details related to mass transit options for Macomb County. Number 5, strategic planning process update. City government has completed 2 public meetings related to the development of a new strategic planning document for the city. The meetings were held on 2 off Mondays when commission meetings were not scheduled. Mayor and commission and city administration met for over 3 hours each of these nights at meetings facilitated by SEMCOG, which was done at no cost, which is a benefit of SEMCOG membership. We look forward to the presentation of the results at a future commission meeting. And that's the last item that I have for the city manager report.
Are there any questions or comments on city manager's report?
I had a question about the street sweeping.
Yes.
I understand that the schedule of doing that is affected by the weather, but is it possible at all to get like a tentative schedule of when different streets will be done so that we can encourage people to move their cars off the street when it happens?
I'll get together with Jeff Wood and see what kind of formal plan we can come up with, if any, and we'll make a report on that and then provide information on the city website, et cetera, as it's appropriate.
That would be great.
Okay.
City commissioners' comments? Commissioner Blash, since you're all by your little self over there, we'll let you go first.
Well, I'm glad to be back.
Good to have you back.
And but just to answer the resident's question with regards to qualifications to sit on the Board of Review, the only qualification that a Board of Review member has to have is that he or she has to be a resident of the city of Mount Clemens. They are not trained appraisers. They're not assessors. And I think there's a reason for that. They seem to be more sympathetic, if you will, in most cases, to those persons that are coming before them. But you will get somebody who is highly qualified when you get to the tribunal level.
Got it.
Other than that, go Tigers.
Commissioner Rager.
Fantastic segue. I just want to thank the 1070 Tiger Cubs
There
for
you
coming
go.
out, and that's who you're referring to, I imagine.
Sure.
For coming out and leading us in the pledge. That was great. I want to thank the staff for their quarterly reports and the city manager for your due diligence on the potential contract. The contract is very weighty financially that we're considering. It would cost $204,000 a year or $17,000 a month. That's substantial consideration, and I appreciate Commissioner Blash's suggestion on potentially mitigating that. And then as far as Mr. Harrington's comment about are we the right people to come to, the answer is yes. And the bottom line is, though, it takes 4 of us to make some type of change that you want. So I encourage people's advocacy to continue coming and speaking their mind. And we are all listening, and I would comment that maybe some of us are a little closer than others. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Hill.
I too would like to thank the department heads for their reports this evening. I always find them very interesting, and hopefully it's informative to the people of the city as well. It's nice to see that the cleanup of the former Roth and Deng property on Cass Avenue is finally taking place. That's been an eyesore for a long time, and I understand the problems with the DEQ, but it's a relief that it's finally being done, and they are making pretty fast progress. So I'm hoping that it will be totally cleared very soon. As far as the contract for the water and waste plant management, this has been an ongoing discussion. I think people have brought up some valid points, and it is true that if we hire this management company, it's going to be expensive. However, I do want to say that it's only for 1 year. But anyway, I do hope that everybody can get their questions answered at our next meeting, and we can make a decision and put this thing to rest. It's been wonderful seeing spring arrive in Mount Clemens. It's great to see flowers starting to bloom and people working in their yards, and things happening in the city, people out riding bicycles and walking, and the city seems to be coming to life in the springtime. I do want to mention the crop walk on Sunday, May 3rd. You will probably see close to 200 people walking the streets of Mount Clemens that day, raising money for crop, which is an attempt to alleviate hunger throughout the world, the United States, and some of the money even goes right here in Mount Clemens to places like Father Bob's Food Pantry, the Salvation Army, the community meals that are sponsored by a couple of churches here in Mount Clemens. And so if you see people out working that day, wave to them and cheer them on. And I will be one of those people. I plan to walk 5 miles that day. So if anyone would like to contribute to my walk, I'd be happy to accept your donations. And so I'll just close with that and wish everybody a good evening and a great week.
Thank you. Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight we had quite a few residents here, obviously frustrated with the progress that they see within the city regarding blight and code enforcement issues. I went out on a walk a couple weeks ago and I compiled a list of 17 violations ranging from a car having expired plates across the sidewalk for 3 years, gutters clogged with foot-high trees, mattresses on the side of the house, a van in the yard buried up to its axle, a canvas bag holding drywall that sat there. These are code enforcement issues. They are frustrations to the residents. Obviously, we have some disconnect with, because we get lists of all the code violations, and I've been told that one of the problems is that court dates are set as opposed to tickets being written. So I think we need to change whatever we need to do so we can start writing tickets to these issues as opposed to assigning a court date, because by the time the court date gets set, nothing ever becomes of it. So we need to work on getting tickets written for these code violations that I've mentioned here, and that was just on 3 streets that I walked down. As I said, the level of frustration from the residents here is evident, so we need to address that quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call.
Dempsey.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Flash.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.
Lois?
Oh,
Get it up. Funny. I just thought it was really hilarious.